All right, moving on to round 31 to do our last part. It's going to be part 5 of this pineapple Afghan. So you're going to slip stitch into the V-stitch. You're going to chain up 4, put a double crochet into that same V-stitch. Go ahead and chain 2. Put a V-stitch in the next 3 chain 2 spaces. So in this next space you have a V-stitch, chain 2, V-stitch. You're going to put a V-stitch in all 3 of those chain 2 spaces. So double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Okay. Then we're going to put a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into the next chain 2 space. Okay, we're going to do a double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet into the next chain 2 space. Okay, so it's going to look like that. Now you're going to chain 2 and put a V-stitch in the next V-stitch. So now we're going to go into our repeat. Let me turn my yarn for y'all. Pull some out a little bit. And we're going to chain 3, put a single crochet in this middle chain 3 space and chain 3 again. And this is going to be the beginning of our repeat. So we're going to chain 3 to get started with this repeat. Okay. We're going to put a single crochet in that second chain 3 space, chain 3 again. You're going to put a V-stitch in the V-stitch. Chain 2. And now you're going to put a V-stitch in all 3 of these chain 2 spaces. So double crochet. Chain 2. Double crochet. Going directly into the next chain 2 space for a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. We're going to go directly into the last chain 2 space of that section, do a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. You're going to chain 2 and do a V-stitch in the last V-stitch, and that's going to complete your repeat. Okay, it's going to look like this. So you have your chain 3 a single crochet, a chain 3, V-stitch in that V-stitch, a chain 2. You're going to have 3 V-stitches in these 3 chain 2 spaces, a chain 2 and a V-stitch. You're going to repeat this 26 times, omitting the last V-stitch sections. Really, you're going to repeat this 25 times, and then you'll end with a chain 3, single crochet, chain 3. And at the end of this round, you're going to have 27 single crochets, 54 chain 3 spaces, 135 V-stitches, and 189 chain 2 spaces, including the V-stitch, okay? All right, so to wrap up row 31, I've just completed my 25th repeat, and I'm going to chain 3, put my last single crochet in, and chain 3 again. And now I'm going to slip stitch to the second chain, this side as well as the back bump, to complete the round. Alrighty. Moving on to round 32, we are going to be slip stitching into the V-stitch. You're going to be chaining up 4, put a double crochet in that same space. You're going to chain 2, put a V-stitch in the V-stitch, and do that 3 more times. So chain 2, V-stitch in the V-stitch, chain 2, a V-stitch in the V-stitch, chain 2, and a V-stitch in the V-stitch. All right, so now we're going to complete our repeat. We're going to be skipping over all of these chain 3 single crochet chain 3 spaces. And so from here, we're going to go directly from this V-stitch into the next V-stitch, closing that gap. So do a V-stitch in that V-stitch. This is going to be the beginning of your repeat. And then you're going to chain 2 and do a V-stitch 4 times. So chain 2, put a V-stitch in the V-stitch. That's the first one. We're going to chain 2, put a V-stitch in the V-stitch. I'm going to move my work. Chain 2 for a 3rd time and put a V-stitch in the V-stitch. Chain 2, and this is going to be your 4th V-stitch in a V-stitch, and that's going to complete our repeat. Now go ahead and repeat that around 25 more times, and then you're going to slip stitch to the 2nd chain of that chain 4 as always. I'm not going to help you do that, as you are going to end in your 25th repeat in this space. Again, you're going to be skipping over all these chain 3 single crochet chain 3s and going V-stitch straight into a V-stitch, okay? At the end of this round, you're going to have 135 V-stitches and 243 chain 2 spaces, which does include the chain 2s in all of your V-stitches. Moving on to round 33. So, to get started, we are going to be doing a slip stitch into the V-stitch. You're going to chain up 4, and this is going to serve as a double crochet chain space, okay? And now you're going to do 5 trebles into the next V-stitch. So yarn over twice, pull up a loop, yarn over. You guys know how to do trebles at this point. That's 1 treble, 2 trebles, 3 trebles, 4 trebles, and 5 trebles. Okay, chain 1 and do a V-stitch in the next V-stitch. Chain 1 and do 5 trebles into the next V-stitch. Makes 2, we're on to 3, 4, and 5. Go ahead and chain 1, and this is where your repeat's going to start. You're going to repeat this 25 times after I show it to you, but we are going to put a double crochet into this first side here. Chain 2, and then put a double crochet into the other V-stitch, okay? And this serves as a V-stitch. Go ahead and chain 1 and put 5 trebles into this next V-stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Chain 1, put a V-stitch in the V-stitch. Go ahead and chain 1 and put 5 trebles in this next V-stitch. So 1 treble, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and chain 1. And that's going to complete your repeat. And you're going to go and repeat that 25 times, starting with that double crochet in that first side of the 2 V-stitches here. And so at the end of round 33, you're going to have 270 trebles, 108 chain 1 spaces, 27 V-stitches, 54 double crochets, and then 54 chain 2 spaces, okay? And so I will meet you at the end. All right, so to complete round 33, I've just finished up my 5 trebles and a chain. We're going to put a double crochet into this last V-stitch, chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch into the third chain of the chain 4 from our beginning chain 4. And that's going to complete this round. Moving on to round 34. So I have slip stitched 4 times. I've slip stitched around the chain space and in the first, second, and third treble. And that's how we're going to get started for round 34. Before I go ahead and move into this, I'm going to let you know that all of these double crochet, chain 2 double crochet spaces that cross over 2 V-stitches is considered a V-stitch. This is a really simple row, and you're going to be putting V-stitches in the V-stitches and V-stitches in the trebles all the way around, including this pseudo V-stitch. So after you have done 4 slip stitches, you're going to chain 4 and put a double crochet back into that same center treble space, and that's going to start our row. From here, you're going to do your repeat. You're going to chain 3 and put a V-stitch in the V-stitch. Chain 3 again and put a V-stitch in the top of the treble. Center treble, excuse me. Okay, then we're going to chain 3 and put a V-stitch in that V-stitch. And that's how it's going to look all the way around. And you're just going to repeat that all the way around. At the end of this round, you are going to have 108 V-stitches, 108 chain 3 spaces, and 108 chain 2 spaces. So super simple row. You are going to slip stitch to the second chain of that chain 4 to complete this row. Moving on to round 35. All right, so I've already slip stitched just because this is a pretty simple past row that we did. Down to 3 rows, y'all, you did it. So we're gonna slip stitch into the V-stitch, chain up 4, and you're gonna put a double crochet into that same space. Now this is where our repeat is gonna start. You're gonna chain 1, and you're gonna put 7 trebles into the next V-stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You're going to chain 1 and put a V-stitch in the next V-stitch. And that is going to complete your repeat. You're going to repeat that all the way around 53 times, and you'll omit the last V-stitch. So you're going to chain 1, 7 trebles in a V-stitch, chain 1 and a V-stitch and a V-stitch for this round. At the end of round 35, you're going to have 378 trebles, 54 V-stitches, and 108 chain spaces. Moving on to round 36, I am going to go ahead and complete my slip stitch from round 35. And this round is actually going to be very similar to round 34, where we put a V-stitch in our middle treble clusters. And so to get started, we're gonna slip stitch into the middle of that V-stitch, chain up 4, and put a double crochet in that same space. So from here, you're gonna start your repeat. We're gonna be chaining 3, and we're gonna put a V-stitch in the 4th treble of our 7 treble clusters. So go ahead and do a double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet into that same treble, chain 3, and then put a V-stitch in the V-stitch. And you're gonna repeat that all the way around. You have a chain 3, a V-stitch in the 4th treble, a chain 3, and a V-stitch in the V-stitch. You'll repeat this 53 times, or I guess 52 times, and then you will put your last V-stitch in this treble and chain 3 to slip stitch to your second chain of the chain 4 that made this V-stitch, okay? At the end of this round, you are going to have 108 V-stitches and 108 chain 3s. Moving on to round 37. This is going to be our last round. I'm so excited that you guys have finished this beautiful Afghan. We are going to slip stitch into this V-stitch, and we're going to chain up 4. You're going to put 8 more trebles, and this is going to serve as a treble, this chain 4. You're going to put 8 more trebles into this same V-stitch to get started on this round. So 3, be a total of 9 in this V-stitch is what I should have said. 4, 5, 6, 7. Now at the 7th, I usually move this over. I think I said that when we did 9 before, just because it does get a little full. And 9. Alright, so that's what it's going to look like. Your chain 4 is one of your trebles, and then we put 2, 4, 6, 8 more there. So now, to start your repeat, we're going to chain 1 and put a V-stitch in the V-stitch. You're going to chain 1, and in the next V-stitch, you're going to put 9 trebles. So, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it is getting a little tight, so I'm going to move over my stitches just a touch, 8, and 9. Alright, so you're going to repeat that, chain 1, V-stitch in the V-stitch, chain 1, and 9 trebles in the following V-stitch, all the way around 52 times, and then you're going to chain 1 and put a V-stitch in this V-stitch, chain 1, and you're going to actually slip stitch to the 4th chain of the chain 4 that we started with, and I'll help you close out this round. Alright, so I just completed my last V-stitch. I'm going to chain 1. And I'm going to pick up the side as well as the back bump of that 4th chain. And I'm going to slip stitch. I am going to slip stitch into the next treble for safekeeping, and I'm going to fasten off about 6 inches and pull all the way through, and I will weave this in this tail. I have a few other tails, but thank you so much for tuning in for this absolutely beautiful Afghan that we made here together. I look forward to making another with you all, and you should have quite the Butte. I can't wait to see what everybody has made and see these all over the place. Congratulations on completing this with me, and I look forward to hearing from you guys down in the comments.